What's up, bitches? Welcome back to another episode of Positively Uncensored, your favorite reality TV and interview podcast. It's your host, Leah.
And today we are going to be diving into Vanderpump Rules Season 12. This is the reboot season. It had its first premiere episode last night, December 2nd, which was a Tuesday. So this show will be coming out on Tuesdays on Bravo at 9 p.m., just following Salt Lake City. I thought that the premiere episode was about a 3, maybe a 4 out of 10 on a rating scale. And I overall don't have a great amount of optimism towards the season. However, I watched. The people said that I should give it a chance. I'm going to. I'm going to continue watching, and maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. I remember when the Valley first came out and the announcement of the Valley, I should say, and they showed the trailer, and I thought, this is a show about nothing. I'm not going to enjoy it. It's going to be irrelevant. And then I ended up watching it, getting hooked. The reason I think this will be different. The Valley was a success because we were following people that we were already familiar with. And the familiarity that we had with them was we knew them for their chaos. So yes, they may have stepped into adulthood and into parental responsibilities or different roles altogether. But this is still Crazy Kristen. This is still Jax Taylor. This is still Brittany Cartwright, and therefore they had our attention. The only way that I would have been excited about a reboot is if they had foregone any idea of external casting or recruitment. And if instead we were genuinely following Lisa Vanderpump's full-time employees who work for her, I don't think she has Villa Blanca anymore. I think that closed, but her full-time employees only who work at SUR. All of us, this is not a unique thought. All of us loved Vanderpump Rules because we were watching people genuinely struggling to make a living. It felt relatable. They were actually working at SUR. They were actually pursuing what felt like pipe dreams at the time, a career in modeling, a shot to have a small acting part, right? Like they didn't foresee the success of the season. So in order for this to feel somewhat authentic to the initial premise and to feel like a proper reboot, that's the direction that I think that they would have had to go to on the show. Instead, it seems that there's a decent amount of people who were working for Lisa. My belief is that these relationships, these working relationships, were probably facilitated around the idea that they were going to be featured on the show. There are at least several cast members that we're familiar with from other reality TV shows. So that's sort of just like my general starting thoughts. Getting into last night's episode, which will be the premiere episode. We have 10 new cast members, and I am recording this episode audio, but I also have the video out here for everybody on YouTube, which is a good time to remind you, if you have not liked this video already, please like the video, make sure you're subscribed, turn on your notifications. If you're listening on Spotify, same thing. Make sure that you're subscribed. You can also leave a comment now, but I am recording on Riverside, which is my studio that doesn't have as great capabilities of sharing my screen to show reference photos. So I know that a lot of people like seeing people's photos, especially when it's like the first episode of a show. Unfortunately, I don't have that capability with this streaming software. So for everybody who listens audio, I'll just be doing the same thing. So Venus, and I'm going to be because of that, I'm going to be providing like somewhat brief descriptions about some of the cast members that I felt like I had a good descriptor for. Venus is the first server, the opening shot of who we see the show start with. And he's introduced as a server at Sir, serving. And he has long hair like JVN, Jonathan from Queer Eye, Jonathan Van Ness. He claims to have worked 36 jobs, but working at Sir is his favorite. He references how it feels a little bit like high school, but you have the opportunity to drink and cut up with your friends. The next person who we meet is Natalie, who appears to be behind the bar with Chris Hahn, who is from Dated and Related. He was also on Perfect Match. He was also a cameo in the show House of Heat about OnlyFans content creators. He was a friend of Chase Moore. So he was a bartender. And behind the bar with Natalie, sorry, lost the plot for a second. Natalie has a middle part, long brown hair. She looks like, like an Instagram baddie, right? And she has a boyfriend who is 54 years old, her ex-boyfriend, and also is employed at Sir. It sounds like they broke up about 3 months ago, and since then, things have been sort of tumultuous, on and off, toxic. We see more of this situation play out later. Now, remember this and this description I'm giving, because at the end, I'm going to talk about who I believe is supposed to be each character for people where it's sort of obvious. As mentioned, Chris was behind the bar with Natalie from Dated and Related. I don't like Chris, and that's because of how he treated Tolu on Perfect Match. So I don't have the best impression of him, but we'll see how things go. We then meet Demi, or Dem, sorry. Oh my God, Secret Life of Mormon Wives. We meet Demi, who's the assistant manager for Lisa, and she was the only person who we know on the cast who's been working for Sir for an extended period of time. She has been there since 2019. She has dark hair. I think she had like blue eyes, and she looked exactly like Danielle from Love is Blind, maybe season 1, maybe season 2, who was coupled up with Nick Thompson. They look so similar together. I thought it was Danielle at first. Next person that we meet is Kimberly/Kim. Some people call her Kimberly, some people call her Kim, and she has a toxic relationship with Marcus, who is also an employee at Sir. We see some of their relationship issues this first episode, and I'll be honest, their issues just feel forced. Like it just feels a little forced. Do I believe that they have a toxic relationship? Yes. The one thing about Jax, yes, like at times, like we would say, like he's a creepy old man, but he was attractive. I can't necessarily say the same thing about Marcus. But, anyways, I reserve the right to change my opinion. Marcus is introduced as an F-boy who is dating Kimberly, and is best friends with pop diva Venus, finding themselves to be complete opposites. Like I said, he's an F-boy, douche, straight. His best friend is a gay pop diva with long hair. The first real, problem, or the first real plot line that we see this episode, is Lisa pulling Natalie, who was the bartender, for a conversation to confront her about her behavior at Sir the other night, and not only yelling at the assistant manager Demi, but also yelling at Paolo, the 54-year-old ex, who was potentially working behind the bar. We do see a glimpse of, what is it called? The CCTV footage, whatever the proper name is. We see the security cam footage, and she's yelling. She appears to be off the clock, sitting at the bar. She has her phone. She's lifting it up. She's putting it in his face, and she wants him to unblock her ex. Now, like I said, while she was there and being told to calm down, she also got yelled at or talked to by Demi, and she ends up lashing out at her. Now, Lisa tells Natalie in this conversation that she's going to give her a break because she does realize that the cause behind her behavior is a lot of hurt that's going on for her right now with the ending of her relationship and seeing Paolo together at work. And this just feels so curated to be similar to Stassi. Like, no matter how they try to typecast or cast people who have similar storylines, even trying to do that at all is a mistake in my mind. But like I said, Lisa goes easy on her, says she understands, and this feels very familiar for anybody who watched early Vanderpump Rules to how she talked to Stassi. Marcus is telling Natalie, who has just broken up with her boyfriend, this is after her conversation with Lisa, that Shane, his friend, is going to be coming in that night and that she can hit on him. However, when Shane shows up, Shane brought a girl with him. Now, Natalie pulls Kimberly and tells her that she's upset that Shane brought a girl with him. And we find out that she only met Shane 3 weeks ago at karaoke. They aren't dating, they aren't exclusive, debatable if they even have each other's phone numbers. And we learn from him that she's sort of been playing hard to get. So he intentionally brought this girl to see if she would have a reaction. Now, Marcus was bigging up Shane before he got there because this is his friend. And granted, Shane was very attractive. However, Marcus's favorite thing about his friend Shane was his laugh. And like, if you didn't think that that was attractive, then you probably wouldn't think that Shane's laugh is attractive. I think that if women have admitted that sometimes the bar is in hell for expectations for men, that men's bar is non-existent for their friends or other men, apparently. Because what? I saw the Watch What Happens Live episode immediately following, and even Brittany Bateman from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City made fun of Shane's laugh. This is Brittany, high body count hair Brittany, who arguably doesn't have much better of a laugh. But yeah, okay. Anyways, the cast goes out for drinks. This is after the shift. And Shane's no longer with the girl, seemingly. And all of them are sitting there, and him and Natalie have a conversation. She's like, I'm so mad at you. Like, why'd you bring that girl? I'm kind of into you. And he was like, I'll be honest. Are you serious? I was spiraling over you. I like couldn't stop thinking about you. I'll be honest. Like, you had me basically like crashing out. I almost turned the episode off right here. Like right here. Number one, like the going out scene, again, it felt curated, it felt facilitated. Also, we see a meeting where there's clearly like way more staff members than whose journeys we're following on this show. Interestingly enough, it seems like there's some diversity there as well. Like she has several Black employees, a Black woman and a Black man. And it's interesting that we aren't seeing them. And I also remember, like, initially, I could have sworn that at least there was a Black man who was part of the initial cast that we were shown. So all of a sudden, for every single cast member to be white, I almost turned it off. Okay. Shane and Natalie, like I said, they end up talking, having their conversation. He puts his arm around her, and I literally have in my notes 22 minutes in, and that's the point that I want to turn it off. Now, as they're sitting there, Natalie ends up having a conversation with Marcus, who, if you remember, is Kimberly's boyfriend. And Kimberly gets mad at Natalie for standing and talking to Marcus. In her perception, ever since Natalie has broke things off with her ex, she has just been desperate for attention from guys, including any attention that her boyfriend Marcus is giving her presently. Now, on the Watch What Happens Live episode, it does seem like they are just friendly with each other. They think of each other as platonic. If anything, they're sometimes grossed out by one another. I did get that vibe and believed them as they were sitting on stage at Watch What Happens Live. However, if I'm thinking back to 23-year-old Leah, who was competitive with other women sometimes and hadn't completely identified the fact that I said things that like were misogynistic, I could see myself sitting there and being like, why are you taking my boyfriend? Why? But this whole thing was just very stupid. Somebody even asked at some point, like, what is this? The 1900s? Like, why can't they be friends? Why can't they be friends? Now, Kimberly does clarify that it's not that he can't be friends with any girl. It's just that she doesn't believe that Natalie has boundaries. We don't learn of any specific incident other than she goes, then she started sending pictures of her heels. every guy's fantasy. Like very deadpan, very straightforward. She's upset with Natalie for sending photos of her heels. Like in what context? Is the foot in the heel? Was she asking him like which heels should I wear to work today? If so, like that's kind of like a friendship that she would probably have more like with Venus, who is his best friend. That doesn't sound very chummy. Now, if she has herself in the heels out of nowhere, no context, toes out, polished up, lubed up to the gods, then maybe that's a little like, oh, like that's weird. But that's the example of the boundary that Natalie seemingly has crossed so far. We then have to see both Kimberly and Marcus tell their version of what happened that night. And again, Kimberly says it's not the fact that Marcus can't be friends with girls, it's Natalie. Demi, the assistant manager, has been friends with Marcus for years and nothing's ever happened. Nothing's ever made me feel uncomfortable. It's their relationship. The next thing that we see is Lisa's manager with the French accent who has been there honestly since like early seasons. I remember her being there earlier when we used to watch the show, the original cast, even like earlier in the seasons. She's still there and she's visibly shaken and upset by the fact that she watched the security cam footage and she saw that all four new employees were drinking on the clock. Now, at first, Lisa sort of placates her and is basically like, look, this is a show. I need them to drink for ratings, like basically. But what she says is, will the business suffer if we let 4 people go today? And she's like, okay, whatever. Basically, I thought Lisa wasn't going to say anything about it. However, watching Vanderpump Villa, I should have known that they would try to strike some sort of team meeting where Lisa has an additional scene and she really solidifies her role as uniting the group and being the manager. So she yells at the entire group about people who were drinking. And ultimately, Marcus is the one who gets sent out of the meeting. From what I recall, Marcus was the one who was trying to teach the new employee how to drink and get away with it. And this is why everyone was so upset. Now, having worked at a bar, that's also why I was a bartender. I worked at a bar, I worked at a club in college. And that's part of why I love Vanderpump Rules. You're absolutely drinking on the clock. However, yes, you absolutely will get let go if your manager finds out. Because, at least for me, I was given shots on the clock or like an amount that I was allowed to have. But if you ignored that and just continued taking shots or took one without asking, I would see my manager freak out at times over that. So if you've ever worked in hospitality, specifically at a bar. But does it happen? Absolutely. Like if you won't let them drink at work, it's more likely, to be honest, especially if you're just like walking home from work afterwards or riding your bike, that you're going to drink before work and at the bar down the street, that you have a close relationship with the people who work there. So the episode ends with Kim bitching about Marcus some more and about, I'm not going to support him because of how he didn't support me. And like I said, I just don't foresee myself getting invested into this. Could I? I'll leave the margins at 30% possibility, 70% possibility at the end of the season. I'm like, I don't want to watch this again because I knew by the trailer alone that Southern Hospitality was going to be a good show. And what Leva did correct is, yes, these are people who enjoy being on TV. They're hot, young, 20-somethings, sometimes 30s, who enjoy being on TV, but they all work there. They all work for her, are actually working there, are still working there. And because they work there and live in that small town, a lot happens. And that's what this show doesn't have. It doesn't have that. It doesn't have the genuineness of like you put a camera into anybody's, it doesn't even matter whose, anybody's establishment where there's like co-ed staff, even an all women staff, right? Like at a bar, there's drama, there's something to cover. This I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. Tell me what you guys think. Do you think I'm being too harsh? What's the overall score that you give the episode if I continue watching? Any early predictions on standouts? I do think that Venus might end up being a standout. He was the funniest person on the show so far. I enjoyed his commentary and also just sort of being not in the center of the mess, but like around it, like observing on the outside. I enjoyed that. But as far as the idea of like Natalie being a replacement for Stassi, Vanderpump Rules is a very, very, very hard show to reboot because everything like Real Housewives of New York, people will still be thinking of that legacy cast and trying to find parallels for who was going to be who, almost similar to how people were at first with season 7 of Love Island, trying to say that, like, oh, her, and her are supposed to be PPG, like she's just hit her, or like he's obviously supposed to be him. Like when there's a very successful show and then you try to continue that show, there's going to be comparisons made. But like I said, I think that they could have done it and they could have done it a lot better if it was just truer to the original premise, which begs the question, should they have renamed this? Should they have done this? Should we just give it the full season? Tell me what everybody's thinking in the comments. Leave me a message, leave me a review, like this video, and have an amazing Wednesday.